goes beyond recruitment. Firstly, it's about clarity and confidence. You know exactly which partnership models truly serve you, your business, and your clients. And then it's about personalized recommendations with zero pressure. We're not here to sell to you. We're not here to push you in an unwanted direction. We're here to match you with the right proposition for your goals and your working style. And then finally, you're in control. You decide how far you explore each opportunity. Our role here is to give you honest insights and tailored options. To do that, you can use our tailored scorecard. It's a quick way to identify which business model best fits you and your clients. And that covers off who you need to talk to if you're thinking of moving. But if we get onto the real meat and potatoes of why we're here today, today's session is about what you need to think about when you are going to move. What are your considerations? So again, coming back to, it's not what you know, but who you know. To help us, we've got the experts. And it's my great pleasure to introduce both Leanne and Adam from Financial Solutions. And we're really, really excited to see what they're going to show us today. And then, answer those considerations. And I think the presentation has 9 of them. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll hand you over mainly to Leanne and Adam.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for the introduction, and good morning to everybody. Sorry, I just play around with my screen setup there. Good morning to you all, and welcome to Breaking Away with Confidence. So today, what we're hoping to do is to just give you a bit of an overview of the key considerations that you need to think about if you're considering changing where you are authorised. I'll be presenting today in conjunction with our operations director, who's Adam Presswood.
Good morning.
He'll be chipping in with his thoughts and experiences on each of those areas that we're going to cover off. And thanks, Mark. We're delighted to be running the session in conjunction with you today.
Yeah, fantastic. No, it's great to have you. It's great to have you. And I think for all of us, it's going to be a great learning experience. Obviously, what we do here day in, day out is speak to advisors. So actually, anything that can help me, educate and, inform is always going to be a great thing. And obviously, bypassing me and going straight to them is probably even quicker process.
Well, feel free to either get in contact with Mark or us if we can help you with anything, but we'll kind of deal with all of that at the end. But over the next sort of 35 minutes, what we're going to do is unpack 9 kind of key essential considerations for you to help plan a transition away from where you might be currently to a future home, whether that's joining a network, setting up as a self-employed advisor in a larger firm, or going directly authorised. I think all of these considerations apply no matter what it is that you choose to do. Our goal today isn't to convince you that you should be moving. It's just to show you what you need to be thinking about strategically in order to do a move that in confidence and to help you achieve your future goals. So I suppose a bit of scene setting here. Our industry is going through vast amounts of change at the moment, and the key driver of that change at the moment really is consolidation. It's been the big story of the past few years. It's in all of the press, and that there is a movement in the industry towards kind of realizing future value of a business, and there's lots of people that are kind of making that move, and that we can see that in the numbers. So the industry is actually doing a relatively good job at growing, which it's not always been the case. But over the last 12 months, we've seen a 15% increase in advisor numbers. But interestingly, there has been a 6% reduction in the number of firms in the industry, which it sort of suggests 2 things, really. The industry is growing, which is obviously welcome. But advisors are sometimes probably having decisions inflicted on them that maybe they don't agree with or that aren't quite right for their clients. And the great news is that provides us with opportunity. And particularly here at Financial Solutions, we're looking to help with that opportunity where we can. So on the agenda today is 9 key considerations, which I've talked about already. we want to help those advisors that are independent minded to take advantage of the opportunity, the kind of consolidation in the market is presenting, and help you to chart your own course. Maybe you haven't got around to it before now, but now is a really good time to think about it. Clients are increasingly demanding personal connection and continuity and understanding and reassurance, particularly when there's a looming autumn statement on the horizon. If you've ever thought, I could do this better my own way, or I want to have my own brand, I want to push my own values, then now might be the right time to explore it seriously. So let's head straight into the first item on the agenda, which is what business plan and model are you going to adopt? So that's your first big structural decision. How do you want to operate? You've got three broad routes. You could choose to be an appointed representative in a network or as part of another directly authorised firm. You could choose to be a self-employed advisor, be that again within a network or as part of a larger principal firm, or you could choose to be directly authorised. Each one will offer you a different balance between the control, responsibility, and the regulatory burden. You can see that we've sort of listed those three things there on the page. From the operational side, this decision is going to define everything that follows. So how much you want to be responsible for your compliance oversight, what choices you want to make and have the capacity to fulfill in terms of what's your tech stack going to look like. What are your capital requirements? If you're directly authorised, you will have to have funds on account, which you cannot spend, you cannot touch. It has to be in free cash in order to satisfy the obligations to the regulator. There's lots and lots and lots of considerations that you need to think about depending on which business model and plan that you decide upon. And if you insure, then you need to think probably a bit about where you want your business to be in the next 3 to 5 years, not just where you are now. And the vision will help inform the decision that you make ultimately. We're happy to have an open discussion with anybody who isn't sure what kind of model might best fit their business. Just reach out and ask a question, or drop a question in the chat if you want to understand more about what any of those business structures might look like. A key part of that kind of business plan and model is going to be timeline. So there's lots and lots of factors that are going to come into play when you're considering making a move. And timing it all so that it fits together is going to be critical. One thing you need to think about is any notice periods that you might have under your existing contractual circumstances. Do you have restrictive covenants? Have you got the ability to contact clients? Do you own them? Or does the firm that you're leaving own them? What's going to happen to your income during this transition period? Those timelines, you sort of best place to list them out and maybe map it out onto a bit of a spreadsheet. And then what you want to do is overlay these two factors on the screen here. So if you join a network as an AR firm, you're looking at roughly 1 to 3 months from sort of starting to investigate whether they're the right home for you to getting authorised if you move quite quickly. So the application process can be a little bit quicker than if you are deciding to be a DA firm, in which case you need to be planning for more like 6 to 12 months. And that's not just because the application process is more detailed. You're going to have to submit a regulatory business plan. You're going to need to liaise with the regulator. The regulator has different timescales, statutory timescales on how they respond to the different types of application. And for one reason or the other, seeking authorization as a self-employed advisor as part of a network or as an appointed representative firm is slightly quicker. A DA firm, obviously, the FCA have to conduct far more due diligence on your fitness and propriety before they authorize you. So make sure you get those timelines aligned. understand what the interruptions might be, how long you need to factor in before you can make contact to clients. And our top tip really is whichever route you choose, start early. The biggest cause of delay that we see is incomplete or inaccurate paperwork. So you're going to need to dig out all those old certifications for all of your exams, your last 12 months CPD record, your SPS. You're going to need to have income and expenditure for you as an individual, disclosures around that, disclosures around fitness and propriety. If you go in DA, there's that, like I mentioned, the regulatory business plan, which is really detailed. There's a lot of different support companies that can help you with this process. So if you go in DA, I highly recommend that you reach out to one of those and you get support from them in making sure you get your DA application right first time, because each time you sort of go back into and the FCA has to ask you questions, the clock stops, and that's going to elongate your time to authorization. The same if you're joining an AR as a self-employed advisor to a network. The fewer questions we have to ask on the back of you submitting your application, the better. So get that all lined up and ready. Know which drawer those things are in, and then you can move forward smoothly and without any unnecessary delays and interruption.
And Leanne, it's also just worth mentioning to our guests is that whilst we've got those timelines on screen now, from our experience, we've seen wildly differing ends of the scale on that. So when obviously we're going to run through a few other bits in conjunction with this, but it's worth bearing in mind that we've seen the odd self-employed advisor authorised within 1 week, which was pretty impressive by the FCA. Equally, for no other reason, we've seen a very similar application be 3 months. So yes, these are the predicted timelines. Obviously, there's a window there, but it's worth also having sort of your ducks in a row on the I don't know, you could call it unlikely expectation, but who knows nowadays that it could be within 1 week that right, great, I'm authorized. So actually sort of getting those ducks in a line, knowing that it could happen at any point really within that time frame is quite an important consideration.
Absolutely, yeah, and keeping that open dialogue, whether that be with the network or with the support company that you choose, it's just gonna make that all run more smoothly. But yeah, it's important to sort of caveat that once it goes into that process with the FCA, it's a total unknown, and there's very little in our experience that comes back that gives us a steer as to how long those things are going to take. Everybody's favorite subject, and it can either pique your interest or it can come across as a bit dry. But really, this is where your foundations for your firm and your independence are built. This is where kind of there can be actually quite a lot of creativity if you choose to go directly authorized. You're obviously going to be in control of your own destiny. You're going to be able to design your own systems, design your own controls, figure out your own processes. And you might choose to do all of that yourself, or you could choose to outsource it. The key thing to remember there is that even if you outsource your compliance, policy, oversight, systems, controls to a third party, you will still be accountable to the regulator. So it's not a case of just set and forget. You need to be on top of the discussion points that are coming out of the regulator. You will be responsible for responding to any information requests that they send. So it's important that you understand what your obligations are going to be, decide what you're going to outsource, what you're going to take on and have capacity for yourself, and really kind of make that decision at the earliest point. I was speaking to a directly authorized firm recently who told me that he thinks roughly a third of his working week is spent on dealing with issues with the regulator. And that wasn't a particularly contentious firm, it's just a standard sort of retail IFA. But that is how consuming the regulator can be. An important factor is whether you can take on that burden. Obviously, if you're part of an AR, if you're an AR or part of a network, then you're going to give away some of the autonomy on what that compliance regime looks like. But you're also, creating capacity because they're going to handle all of those concerns for you. Your important questions to ask yourself and ask of them at the point that you might choose network is, what do you take responsibility for? How do you use my data to answer the information requests of the regulator? What does your framework look like? What is your appetite for risk? What does your advice standards look like? All of these questions you need to be asking of that network during your due diligence so that you understand that your goals and their goals are aligned. What you don't want to do is join a network, get authorized, and then find out that actually they do things in a way that you're just not on board with, and it's completely alien to you and your clients, and nobody, nor the network nor you, wants to be in that position whereby it's a battle to be right in business. That's not ideal for anyone. So make sure you're asking all the right questions at the outset during your due diligence period. But like I said, this area is your chance to build a scalable system that works for you, not against you, and that is providing that safety net for you and your business, but also, is facilitating good interactions with your clients, and building confidence for you to supply advice.
So would you say, Leanne, that that's possibly one of the most key questions that an advisor should be asking themselves first off? Really, just where they want to go.
Absolutely. I mean, all of the other things can be outsourced, and you sort of pass on accountability and responsibility to others potentially. If you're choosing to go DA and you're focused on that area, this one part of your business, you can release some of the burden by outsourcing, but ultimately it sits with you. So it just comes down to, whether you've got the capacity to do that, knowledge, experience, understanding. I think it's just about appetite and capacity with clients, but you definitely need to ask that question early on and understand where you want to be as a business owner, in terms of the type of work that you want to be doing. Would you be applying for a job where you had to spend a third of your time dealing with compliance issues, or do you want to focus on your clients, I suppose, is the key question, because somebody in your business is going to have to be focused on this area, and it's a lot. I'll hand over to Adam to talk about tech, unless you've got another question, Mark.
I was going to say, I know what my answer to that question would be. I would be letting someone else deal with the compliance, that's for sure.
Cool, thanks, Leanne. So as Leanne has alluded to, tech stack is certainly my gig in financial solutions. So just a few stats on screen. First of all, around half of UK firms rank seamless integration as a top priority, which is probably not surprising. And firms feel that they can service 20 more clients each with better integrated tech, which personally, I think both of those stats are probably slightly undercooked. I would like to think maybe more than 50% would sort of seek integration as a priority there, and I think you could probably service more than 20 clients, but that's just a personal opinion. So a few considerations, I guess, that you would want to think about in terms of technology. So I always like to encourage advisors to think about the licenses/subscriptions they have in their firm. So what technology you're going to use, and actually think about what licenses or subscriptions are you likely to never ever be able to do without. And as a slight spoiler, the obvious one that you may not think of is your Microsoft licenses. Every single firm across the business pretty much has a Microsoft license, be it Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. So what we've chosen to do at Financial Solutions is wed ourselves to the Microsoft ecosystem, and I can touch on that at the end of this webinar if you like a bit more. I'm not going to do a demo in this section, but if anyone's interested about seeing some of our technology we have, I can stick around at the end, and we'll whip through that in 15 minutes or so, depending how much time we have at the end. So other things to think about is how easy is it to access your data? That data is the most valuable thing you have in your business. Barring the clients, of course, they're not technically in your business, but so the data itself is the most valuable thing you can hold. So how easily can you access that? Do you hold it yourself, which is an interesting thought process? And how easy it to say export that data and to run trend analysis and things like that, so you can kind of see the direction of your business, etc. AI is obviously a huge topic in a lot of webinars at the moment and in the press. So think about how AI would integrate throughout those technologies that you're choosing to use. And I don't necessarily mean sort of what AI tool are you going to pick to upload data to. Think about the options where AI can just be seamlessly integrated with everything you do. For example, Copilot with our Microsoft licenses, that being integrated with everything you do is different to say the third-party AI tools that they're great, but you have to upload data to in order to get that the answer back. Whereas what we are looking at AI is that it's just inherent within everything we do. That there's no upload. It can just see all the data and all the client files that are stored in SharePoint safely and securely within that Microsoft environment. So it's not just adopting an AI tool. It's having AI ingrained in everything you do, basically. You have to think about things like client portals, which is quite common in a lot of advice firms now. So do those tools allow the client portal? Do you want a client portal, first of all? But they allow clients to naturally see their data, and where a lot of the good ones will allow you to update that data. How's the risk profiling done? What risk profiling tool are you using? How does that integrate with the client doing it? How does that data land into things like letters, etc., to really speed up that process? So having I guess you could call it a glorified database where all of this data is sat in one location and can be seamlessly pushed into things like annual review letters and suitability report templates. It can really streamline sort of the bits the client don't see and don't necessarily value in the background. So therefore, you could then spend more time with clients if you've got that right tech solution. And also, it has to fit how you would work. So when you are considering moving a network, think about what that advisory flow looks like, and I would certainly always encourage a demonstration of that from the network in terms of what that would look like. What would a client journey look like from day one to then the annual review process after you've given that initial advice, be it consolidation or top up, whatever it might be. And and a lot of these things, the right network could take care of that for you. So coming back to Leanne's earlier slide around DA versus as a network, as a DA, you're kind of taking responsibility to run with that and pick your own, which can be great. But equally, a large part of that thinking can be taken care for you with the right network, allow you to spend more time with clients, of course. And also, the fun thing I'll say is, the right network would find a balance between sort of having compulsory technology that allows sort of consistent oversight for you as well as us, and also then allowing those optional technology bits around the edge. So yeah, I won't go into too much more detail on that on this slide, but like I say, if anyone wants to have a sneak preview of what we've got going on at Financial Solutions, feel free to stick around at the end, and we can do a very quick run through.
Yeah, Adam, just a little question on data. Is there any kind of key things that we see in terms of issues around data when an individual is moving from one entity to another? Do you want to? Is it maybe worth just covering off some of those considerations?
Yeah, certainly. So we see we've done many moves of individual advisors and ARs as well into Financial Solutions, and no surprise, there's a huge variety of the quality of data that gets presented to us. So the best ones are if we can export as much of that fact find data as possible into an Excel or CSV from the existing CRM. So whether it's Xplan, IO, any of the systems out there that essentially you'll have various reports, whether it's plan data, you'll have client detail reports and all things like that. So I'd like to think there's a strong focus on data integrity within most firms nowadays anyway. But the better that integrity is, the far more seamless that will be going from back office system A to back office system B. So yeah, there's a huge variety in the quality we see. So yeah, if you are looking to move, I would spend quite a bit of time just making sure that every client has very accurate back office CRM data, and consistent SharePoint folder structure, or whatever that might be in terms of the file storage at your end.
Yeah, that's definitely something that when I'm speaking to advisors, it's always data, data, data. Because if you want that quick move, you can't do that without putting the legwork in early on and getting all your ducks in a row, or your name's on a spreadsheet, really.
The rewards you could reap from having that integrity are huge, though. It can save so much time, and just little things like them taking that data from knowing that you have integrity in that data into templates and suitableness letters, annual review letters, all things like that. So it's certainly a speculator to accumulate down the line.
Yeah, and it's future proofing your information as well, because once it's in that format, it's so much easier to maintain it. Because you do hear horror stories of people just keeping it on paper, which isn't gonna translate to modern tech, is it?
Yeah, I completely agree.
Absolutely. I mean, just knowing what you've got access to, where it is, what you're going to need in your new home, again, key considerations. But moving on to the next point on the checklist, it's money matters. So it probably seems obvious at the point that you plan to move that you also need to plan your finances. So what are your different income and expenditure, both obligations and requirements? Start with a clear plan. You are going to experience interruption during any transition period. It is, sadly, it's inevitable, and that is just a part of the course. But if we plan it, we can prevent those bumps in the road becoming too disruptive, and there will be transition delays. If anybody's been through this before, then novations or transfer of servicings, they take time before the product providers have redirected all of your income to your new home. So if you build those into your financial plan, much like you would with a client, then plan for that kind of cushion in advance, then you're going to prevent it from being prohibitive to some of the choices you might want to make for your business in its early days. Understand all of the information around what insurances you need, what fees and charges you're going to have to pay, whether there's going to be levies and FCA fees, who pays for them, when will they be due if you're directly authorised, how are they calculated, what license costs are you going to have around your different technologies, who will need to pay for those. If you're a multi-advisor firm, then you need to understand how you're going to recharge that to your advisors. Find out from wherever it is that you're joining what will be deducted and when, and whether you're obligated to have it deducted or whether you will be paying on receipt of invoice. I think more often than not, and it's certainly the case in financial solutions, that we apply kind of a bundled approach, a bundled charge. It's sort of inclusive in your fee, most things, and that if we are going to charge something on an ad hoc basis, we'll let you know when that's going to be, and we will deduct that from the income as it comes through. So the next point is to just understand who does that reconciliation. So some networks might allow you to receive your own fees. Financial solutions, we do all of that reconciliation for you. So we're producing dashboards line by line as to what we've received and when, by which provider for which client. The same with your novation, which is transferring those kind of client agreements from your existing entity to your new entity. Who does that? Are you responsible? Is your new firm responsible? How is that tracked and traced? How will they share where that's up to? What are your responsibilities in that process? And I've talked about charges and hidden costs. As I've said, the first few months can feel bumpy, but by planning it all and planning any lags, transfer delays, it's just going to help you weather that storm more smoothly.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I guess a novation done correctly would slowly see income. It depends on sort of what the exit terms of the current network would be, but under normal circumstances, a smooth novation would see sort of income slowly dropping from firm network A, and as you're joining network B, it would you'll see this slight crossover in in fees. As it drops from one, it should increase another. So yes, as Leanne says, there'll always be that disruption, but yeah, it can certainly be minimised with some forward planning, and certainly getting the odd if you've got the lion's share of your assets on a particular provider, get a BDM involved in that situation, that when the innovation request goes in, you can get them to jump on it and and do you a favour in those situations. So
yeah,
it
comes back to data as well, doesn't it, Adam? In terms of knowing where you need to innovate from and for who, and what you're due and what you're not due.
Absolutely. Yes, so a lot of analysis can be done with your income data initially, but also then when you land in your new network, you want to be then understanding. Leanne lightly touched on things like income dashboards there. So you'd want to be understanding and how your new network is then displaying your fees to you, and actually then how can you access that data to see those trends. So for example, can you export a list of all your fees, say from the last 12 months, and then run trends on those per client to make sure that no fees are missing, for example, from a particular provider. We all like to think a provider will pay us accurately, but I'm sure we've all found instances when they haven't. We have, and I'm sure we're not unique in that. So, allowing yourself to quickly and easily see trends in your client fees should be quite important to you as well. I'd like to think so. It's coming back to the data point. How can you access that fee data? So it's getting the innovation right to then for it to go as smooth as possible. Also, then once you've finished innovation, what access to data of the fees do you have? I think is a key question you'd want to be asking.
Absolutely.
Client comms. So in terms of how we see innovations happen, and it's an interesting stat sort of on the screen here in terms of the trust the client has in their advisor versus when there's regular communication, when there's not. So I'd like to think if most people have regular communication with their clients, the transition would be a non-event really for clients. It doesn't have to be a big deal. I think so what we've seen is that the trust can drop to 20% when communication is infrequent. So when an innovation is about to be happening, generally all clients need to be notified of this, whether it's all by email or by letter. There's a couple of key things in that letter that certainly the providers would want to see, because the odd occasion a provider will ask for a copy of this letter or communication, and the two main things are the fees aren't changing and the service level isn't changing. So when you're communicating to clients, yes, you can explain all the great reasons why you're going from network A to network B or whatever the move might entail. But the key things within there is in order for the providers to be happy that innovation can run through, is that they've seen a letter to say that service isn't changing and fees aren't changing. And also, obviously, it's really, really good idea to explain to the clients how they would benefit from this move as well. It's not, it shouldn't just be seen as a benefit to you. It's all right, because we're doing this, you can then get X, Y, Z, or I can spend more time with you, or a lot of this is taking care of me, or it's a wider team in the background of me. Whatever reasons for your move, should have client benefits, and also just confirming to the client that fees aren't changing, service level isn't changing. And I'd like to see with good consistent communication throughout your clients, it should be a non-event. They won't care. Ultimately, you are their advisor. You are who they engage with. This is almost like a back office type move in the background that shouldn't really worry clients.
And we just want to minimize that risk of churn. If you're in that position where maybe you're an employed advisor and you're looking to go self-employed for the first time, and you own some of your clients and you don't own some of your clients, the business that you're leaving may well write to all of those clients regardless, but you need to make sure that, one, you have the right to contact those clients, and two, that you craft that communication carefully so that it as Adam says, it's an absolute non-event when the switch occurs. So it's probably the last thing on your mind at the point that you're looking to go off and set up on your own and be independent and start a new business or embark down a different path. But one thing that we would advise you do think about is what your exit might look like at the end of your journey. So whether that be because you want to move home or it's because you want to exit the industry in full, now actually might be the best time to plan for it. So it's things like building flexibility into your agreements, into your legal structure, so that, you know, if in future you want to add new partners, you want to sell. Sorry, my puppy's trying to get in on the webinar. You want to make sure that you've got the right contracts and the right agreements that allow those changes to happen in future. We often see that advisors end up locked into restrictive terms that maybe they're not fully aware of, because they didn't get them reviewed at outset. Make sure you get all the agreements that you sign reviewed, and future-proofing now. It gives you freedom later on. You know, find a partner which offers the flexibility of options that you want, whether that be exit options or that they give you freedom to leave, and it's the right to sort of choose whatever that path is that you want to have available to you. You want a partner that isn't prescriptive and that doesn't make things difficult and doesn't stand in your way for what's right for you and what's right ultimately for your clients. Adam, I think you're on mute.
Classic office environment. Thanks, Leanne. Yeah, so CPD is certainly an area that we can't get away from. Certainly considerations you'd want to think about. If you're going DA, then naturally, as Leanne alluded to earlier, those compliance areas kind of sit within you. So you'll be the master of your own destiny in terms of how you structure and how you record that CPD if you're directly authorised. But if you're joining a network, more often than not, there'll be requirements. That there's so much overlap in what those requirements are. Ultimately, you're still doing your 35 hours, of which 21 is structured. And it's really the only difference is how that gets recorded. There's lots of tools out there, and a network might impose a particular tool on you, through the benefit of you and them, just for consistency. But equally, some networks will have autonomy in you recording sort of how you see fit and how you're used to, and then you can just simply export that once a year and submit that to the network. So obviously it goes without saying it has to be done, but each network will have different requirements in terms of what you want to do. So you do want to just make sure that if there is a system that is imposed on you, just make sure that works for you. I would be surprised if it's a deal breaker, given the other things you'd need to bear in mind, but it's certainly worth knowing about that.
Yeah, thank you. And lastly on the checklist is branding and marketing. So I think advisors generally underestimate how much a brand can reassure clients. You want it to be professional and compliant, have your own unique identity, make sure you're able to sort of tell your story via your website and your marketing materials and your content of who you are. If you're looking to grow, then it's going to be critical in helping you generate leads. There's a stat on screen there that 21% of advisors struggle to generate enough leads, but I think the corresponding stat to that is how few advisors focus on what their marketing and content strategy is going to be. There is obviously help and support out there available to you if you want to develop this, and it's something we sort of offer on as a side service within our network. And again, another key stat on the screen is 80% of advisors cite referrals as their primary business source for new business. I think it's well communicated if you're on social media platforms, if you're reading the press, that the most effective way to grow your business, other than buying and acquiring client banks, is via your existing client referrals. So whether you want to have an incentive scheme to incentivize existing clients to refer friends and family to you, whether you're going to ask them at the end of every interaction whether they can think of one person they could speak to about your services. You just got to think about all of those things, have a unique identity, understand what your messaging is going to be, and make sure it's polished and compliant. If you're a member of a network, then all of those communications tend to need to be, if they're a financial promotion, approved. So just check about, what those processes are and what it entails, and make sure that you kind of your website is approved before it goes live. And all of those considerations, they're not going to hold anything up or cause friction later on in the process. So again, it's not the most critical concern, but if you're going it alone, then it's definitely something that it's worth thinking about. And more and more social media and marketing is prevalent in our lives, and it's better to embrace it than it is to sort of shy away from it, and it instills confidence in clients.
Cool. So it's probably worth just kind of recapping what we've ran through then as a bit of a summary. So the starting point is obviously business model itself. You need to work out primarily what route you'd like to go down based on all the pros and cons that we've touched on in the previous slides. Think about that timeline. As I said, it can be unpredictable, so make sure the ducks are aligned, ducks are in order beforehand, rather than sort of trying to work to them what you think that timeline might be. Think about the income in terms of how that that there's probably no getting away from a slight disruption in terms of when that move happens. But like I say, a well-planned ovation should see one side reduce while the other side increases. So we can try and minimize that income sort of disruption as much as possible. The compliance regime, obviously that's going to be a key part of whatever network you join. So make sure that aligns to your expectations of both the sign-off process and also then the ongoing monitoring, and that you're comfortable with that. We touched on the migration planning and how that can be planned effectively with client communication and allowing for some fee disruption and good data, etc. Bring all that together. The tech stack. So this is where, like I say, I think we excel in that, having a good quality tech stack that can embrace AI, that can give you that access to data and the flexibility around that, and actually can service the clients at front end, potentially via a client portal as well. Financial forecasting allows you to just monitor the fees that will be coming as you move forward from the business, and track the individual client fees from all your clients. We touched on client communication. So as long as there's a strong, consistent communication channel to your clients, it should be a non-issue really from moving from network A to network B. And as Leanne just touched on a minute ago, that any marketing collateral, that sometimes networks will help you with that. Or if you're DA, that's certainly something you'd want to bear in mind to harness any sort of resources that are out there.
Absolutely. So we've covered a lot there, and hopefully it's been informative and interesting, but we'll just pause now in case anybody's got any questions.
We did have one question come up. It was about 10 minutes ago now, but I thought I'd save it till the end, till we got to this section. So someone has asked, how do we handle restricted covenants? My firm has a 10-year term for their clients. What if their client wants to follow me out?
Well, I would find it extremely unusual if a 10-year restrictive covenant could be enforced in law. So I do have the benefit of a law degree. It was 20 years ago, but I'm pretty sure that the longest period a restrictive covenant can be upheld for is 6 months. And where the client is has made a clear indication you've not proactively tried to disturb that client, if you've not got the right to, then but the clients come to you. Ultimately, in financial services, the client has the right to choose who their advisor is, and there's no business that can put a constraint on that. And I would like to think that if a client really wanted to leave, then the business in itself would let them. Does that answer the question?
I think so. We'll wait to see if we get a response. I think it does. I mean, it's very interesting because obviously you're saying, obviously 6 months is as most it can be enforced by. I was speaking to a gentleman the other week, and he was told 24 months.
Yeah,
And
a typical
yeah,
agreement would be a typical contract says 12 months, but most kind of case law and precedent would apply to 6 months. Obviously, what you don't want to do is get into protracted legal, conversations and difficulties. So, making sure that you kind of tone the line, doing everything by the book, and not inciting clients to move if you're not allowed to, then that's critical in whether or not a restrictive covenant will be upheld. But an indefinite or long period such as 10 years, it would be unenforceable, I would believe.
Yeah.
I think the key thing there is about mail shot. I mean, I think if there's any sort of covenants in place, then I'd like to think advisors wouldn't be mail shotting all their clients to say, "Hey, I'm moving, come follow me." But there's nothing a current firm could stop could stop a client to want to follow that advisor.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the key thing.
And that's what creates so much opportunity in this industry, and that's the barrier that consolidators are struggling with. They need to keep assets in their structures in order to maintain the kind of satisfaction of the private equity backer or whoever that might be. But the reality is a client can't be pinned down. They have the right to take advice and pay for that advice wherever it is they choose and wherever's providing that ongoing service in reality. So it's an interesting one.
It is a really common conversation that I have. Can I do this? Can I move? Can I contact them? Obviously, there's nothing to stop the client contacting you, and then you've just got to kind of abide by it, but obviously still work with your clients. And if they contact you, then I mean, would you say that if the client just contacted you directly, you can't you can't help that?
No, I just want to add something to that as well, if that's okay. It does depend on the wording that's used in the contracts. So do read carefully about what the non-compete or what the restricted covenants is about. We have seen it in some instances where it says no dealing, so they're not allowed to deal with a client regardless. So it really does depend on the wording that's used in those contracts. So just get it reviewed by somebody. Reach out to us because we can put you in touch with a good solicitor that can have oversight of your contract, just to give you peace of mind so you know what you can and what you can't do, because you don't want to be taken through the mill from the firm that you're leaving as such, because it will just make things really hard work for you. But as we say to every advisor looking to move, you'll always look at your client bank and you'll always do a bit of, we suggest doing a bit of a traffic light signal, session on your client bank. Categorically the clients will follow you because you're their advisor. They're bought into you, not the company, not the brand, not the service they provide, but you as an advisor. Amber, they might need a conversation or two, a bit of work. And red, you probably don't want those clients to come with you anyway. When you break away from some firms, it's almost a start, to start afresh as well. Your clients in every right mind to not engage with the firm when you leave that business as well, as long as they'll know what's going on, so they can disengage with that firm as well. So they don't have to, have a meeting with the new advisor that's obviously been that's going to approach that client of yours. So just always look around the wording of your contracts. I think that's quite important.
Yeah, it goes back to the point we raised earlier. It's just know your obligations, know your restrictions, and just make sure you're operating with clean hands, and then you won't have anything to be too concerned about. Was there any other questions?
No, I think we're there, right?
Yep, we don't have any more at the moment. We'll hold on for 30 seconds. Just obviously, it might have piqued some interest. As we count down and wait quietly, watching me stare at the side of the screen.
While you're just reviewing that, and if you do have any more questions, just pop them into the chat. If we don't get time to answer them today, then we'll obviously try to get back to the respondent with an answer to that question. You can continue to ask them right up to the end of the webinar. But as we've covered, breaking away, it's not just about taking a leap. It's about doing it in a controlled, planned way. It's the most empowering move you might ever make in your career. So you want to make sure that it goes as well as possible. Just to sort of tell you a little bit more about who we are at Financial Solutions and what we're about. We support advisors through this process from start to finish. So whether you're breaking away, you from a consolidator, another large firm, another network, we can help you in whatever situation you're in currently. We can help you transition away from that and really kind of find your freedom, find your independence as part of our network. Our ethos is that we don't want to be a parent company. We don't want to run your business for you. That's down to you. We just want to partner with you in your growth. You can pick the platforms, the investment solutions, your fee structure, whatever that is, you can decide. We'll help you with the framework. We'll help you make it sustainable and provide you with the safety net to operate efficiently and compliantly. Adam's touched on this. We can stay on and deliver more in terms of insight into our technology, or set up a separate confidential conversation where we get into the detail a bit more. But yeah, our ethos and real USP really is that technology stack in providing that efficiency and compliance at source, basically. Goal is simple: help you run your business your way, but with all that infrastructure and confidence that you might want and need as somebody who's not done it before and might be starting out on their own for the first time. So I think, unless there's any more questions, Adam and I just want to thank you for joining us. We'll wish you every success in whatever step you choose to take next. And like I said, if you want to talk to us, then you can either contact us directly. The contact details are all on the website, or you can get in touch with Mark at Anthony George, and they'll set up a confidential discussion with us, whichever route you want to take. Then that's open to you. Thanks everyone for your time.
Yeah, we do have right at the last second, just when you thought you were nipping off to lunch 5 minutes early, we've just had another question come in. So if you're able to answer this, because obviously conscious of time, would having a debt at your existing firm prevent a move? My current firm has said they require 25% of all protection business I've written in case of future clawback when I leave. This would be circa 25k.
So that isn't strictly a debt. That's a potential future liability should clawbacks hit. So there's two distinctions there. An industry debt, when we reference you as an individual with your previous, regulatory reference, an industry debt would have to be, fees or redress that's payable that you still owe to your previous entity. That is potentially prohibitive in a move, because normally you would expect to see those debts settled. What you're talking about there is a potential future liability, and that's part of that contractual obligation on termination when you're leaving an entity. In terms of a new network or a new, if you go DA, I don't think that's a concern for them, but it's definitely a consideration that you need to plan for. So if that's going to prevent them from letting you, let's say, novate, then that's going to cause issues around how smooth your transition is. I think.
Yeah, it's worth also touching when we do novations, the novation letter that gets sent from the from the receiving network. Let's say Financial Solutions, if we were to move into Financial Solutions, our letter to the providers will be saying that we are accepting the liability
for clawback liability.
So I'm not sure how
the
that
debt moves,
intertwine.
The liability moves away with a novation.
Correct.
So you would need to speak to your existing home around what the logistics are around that, because like I said, it's not a real debt. It's not been, it's not realized that it's potential. So understanding the mechanisms around how that work would be the advice I gave.
And that risk to the current network could be moved as part of innovation to the new network. Of course, if there are any clawbacks at the new network, they would likely then just seek that clawback from you, which you'd obviously expect. But I'd like to think it should override any hold. Let's call it
Yeah.
that, any hold. But that you're trying to state there as per contract.
A previous network I was part of, they did used to, they held income on the way out to cover that sort of liability. But as soon as the novation completed, it did pay over to the individual or to the firm. So once all of that liability had novated away, your income was released again and you were paid. So this is what we're talking about in terms of interruptions in your timeline and your financial plan. If you know there's going to be a point where you resign and they're going to just cease paying you, then you need to plan for that. And then you need to kind of figure out when that I suppose kind of dam is lifted and the income starts to flood through again and where you'll be at that point. It just goes back to that point around money matters. Any more questions, Mark?
No, I don't think. No, we've not had any more, which is perfect timing because we've got 1 minute left, which I think is just for us all to say thank you everybody for attending. Thank you for obviously listening to me drone on, and obviously the wonderful words that have come from Leanne and Adam that have completely put me in the shade. So if you have got any questions, you have got any queries, if you want to find out a little bit more, please reach out to myself or Leanne or Adam. And we're more than happy to go through the details and just let you know what you need to do. That once you do move, obviously there's a lot to consider. There's more than I knew, and I've been talking about this endlessly. So this has been vastly a more insightful thing than I could have ever imagined. So thank you guys so much for coming along. And if anybody needs anything, please reach out. So
thanks
Adam,
for having us,
Leanne,
Mark, Anthony, George.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for attending.
Thanks all. If anyone does want to hand around for a demo, then just wait on and we'll sort that out at the end.
Brilliant.
We've got still a few in that waiting room.
If anybody does want to see a demo, if anyone's still around, please feel free just to pop a thumbs up or something in the chat.
Got one there, I think.
Oh, we've got Ronald.
Mark, are we able to unmute participants? I'm not sure the functionality your end.
That comes back to that. It's not what you know, it's who you know, and involves me muting and turning around. 1 second.
Here he is.
Who's got areas? That's not nice. Yeah, absolutely. It just depends on whether they want to be involved in a conversation. I think what might be best is if you go ahead with a bit of a tech demo for the people that want to see a bit of a tech demo. That would be amazing. And for those that are still with us, if you do have any questions, please do use the chat or the Q&A, or if you'd like to speak to the host directly, let us know and we can unmute you and you can have a conversation.
Yeah, you fire away then, Adam.
Cool. Let's share my screen then. Screen 2, that one there. So can you guys see that okay your end?
Yep.
Cool. So I'll just spend 10 minutes just briefly outlining. I don't want this to take everyone's time to do a full-blown demo, but the caveat is if you like what you see in the next 10 minutes, feel free to reach out to us and we can go and spend maybe 40-45 minutes on just running through sort of the entire client process. But essentially this is a system we've built called Wealth Pilot, which is inherent completely within your Microsoft ecosystem. So you can kind of see that I can just jump to any other of my apps here. I'm just logged in as myself, my own Microsoft license. This is an example of John and Jane Doe's portal account. This is at the back end, the advisor's end. So you'd see this on each client. What the clients would then see is this front end here, which is slightly shinier, but the exact same data. So this can be branded in minutes to be exactly your company brand. So it will be portal with the logo here, color schemes at the top, the colors of the progress bars here, etc. So as a high level, we've got the client profile for the client, so you can see their objectives, fact find, duty of care, and ID. I'll just pick one as an example. Their fact find, so all the usual sections you'd expect to see in a fact find. And if I just pick into one of these here, you can see that this data is what we hold then for the client, and this is what the client is seeing that we hold. So they can run through as a brand new client and complete all these fields and complete and move to next, and run through all the fact find pages. Or at the same time, it's an existing client will probably end up syncing over existing data already have, and they'll see this as complete as what we're seeing here. And just if we come back to your side, the advisor/support team can see exactly what the client's seeing. So this fact find link here, this is showing exact same data. So if I change any one of these fields and save it, we can refresh the client's end and they instantly see it. They're looking at the same database. So this is the fact find, all the same tabs you see along here, income expenditure, assets, plans, liabilities, all the usual things you'd expect to see in a fact find. So I won't spend too much more time there. The other big main area, if I just come back out to the home page, is the investment risk profile. So that's all stored in here as well. So we've got our own risk profile tool here. Client can click into the risk profile. There's 10 questions on risk. We've got any anomalies. We've got investor experience, investor knowledge, and investment preference. So the client can run through and do that in their own time, or all of that can be done our side. So risk profiles, we can then see under investor risk profile, we can see that exact risk profile that I've just clicked in here. You can see the exact answers that client has already answered here. Or if a client's not technology savvy and not able to log into the portal, we can then do this on a paper version with the client in the meeting, and then we can translate the answers into the system here. It will show up the same anomalies here and the same investor knowledge and experience and notes boxes here. So we would then assign that risk profile to then one of their objectives. So I went too far there. These objectives are any objective that client would have said yes to and any objective that involves investing money. So things like borrowing protection, it won't create an objective here because we're not investing money. But it's one of the objectives here is the same for retirement. We can then assign that risk profile to this particular objective. We've got the capacity for loss questions that are very specific to that pot of money. Client can then see an assessment in terms of they come out as a 6. They also come out as medium capacity to see what that sits in this sort of color coded matrix. And then the client themselves can then pick a level of risk depending on their asset allocation here. And it's got projected 20-year time frame here. They can change the time frame and they can add. These are the risk discussion notes here between the client and the advisor. So the clients, we'd probably all agree, wouldn't be able to write themselves a compliant risk discussion note. They can add whatever their notes, what they want here, and confirm the risk level. But then on our side, if I scroll down to then that same objective here, we can then see the exact capacity for loss questions the client has answered. Here's the outcome, and here's the risk level that we can then pick with the same risk discussion notes at the front end. And the key thing about this is that all the fact find data, all the risk questionnaire data are all in the same database. So I touched on earlier slightly around the integrations being important, whereas actually we've kind of circumvented that requirement in the sense that we've just got everything in the same database anyway. So we can then push all of this data into things like a risk report that I can download here. We can push it into annual review letters, into suitability letters. We've got a downloadable fact find. So essentially any data that's in the system, we can then just simply download straight into Word documents and suitability letters, etc. The client SharePoint folder is linked at the top here as well, so you can just jump straight to the client SharePoint site. This is then the standard folder structure we have for all clients. So this comes back to my point that I made earlier, that when you've got all of your data and all of your client files in the same location, that's kind of an AI's dream. You can just kind of, within the Microsoft ecosystem, you can point AI at all that data and those files without having to upload anything. And allow it to just constantly make assessments on that data. We can do things like deliver annual reviews. So if we upload some documents to one of these annual review records here, the client can then pick up the same annual review documents on their side. And certainly in this sort of, let's call it the world we live in, or lack of a better phrase, where there's a lot of press happening